Today's webinar is focused on COVID and COVID-19 solutions and returning to the work safely with iFormBuilder. I know there's been a lot of discussion with COVID. I mean, every time you turn the news on, you hear something. And our world is changing because of COVID. So we want to make sure that here at iFormBuilder and Zerion, we're able to give you the tools that you need to successfully go back to the workplace safely and have a good experience all around. So with that, our presenters today are MJ Niskoda and Z Wong. So the two of them have spent a lot of time working on these COVID solutions and are here to present for you today. So today we're going to focus on the remote world and what it looks like moving forward. Whether you believe it or not, our world has changed, and so we are going to talk about that. We'll have MJ talk through the iFormBuilder forms that were developed for the COVID solutions and the command center that we have set up to help support all the forms and anyone who really needs to move forward with these COVID solutions. We'll talk about the operations and control for businesses with COVID-19. And then Z will also talk about the Credential Initiative, the CCI. And lastly, we'll talk through the advisory board, which if you're not a part of, we definitely want you to be a part of it moving forward. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Z, and thank you guys for coming.
All right, thanks, Spirit, for kicking it off. I'm just going to go through some basic where we come from, where I think we're going, and then we'll let MJ handle the important thing. Today is actually day 61 of us staying at home. Now, I did not leave the house for 61 days. So needless to say, the world has changed, at least for me, and we're eager to get back to work. So while we're planning for this webinar, the world already changed in the couple of weeks that we're talking about this webinar. When we were first talking about it, we were seeing Asia was ahead of us. They're slowly getting back to normal. So originally I was trying to say, hey, look at how Asia is slowly getting back and we can take a look at them. This last weekend, however, we're seeing some early sign of wave 2 that is happening in China, in Japan, in Singapore, and South Korea. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But regardless, we're in a remote first world. So if you're not ready, things will be very rough. Now, so coming back to what we're trying to do here is to try to help you be ready. We all want to reopen. We all want to get back to work in some capacity. As a manager, as a business owner, you bear the risk. You need to decide how many of your staff you want to bring back, how many customers you allow in, and that is an important job, and that's not going to be easy. So we have created some tools that hopefully can help you on this journey. So MJ, take it away.
Thank you, Z. As Z has mentioned, we are trying to create tools that can be used for the reopening of businesses, basically the reopening of the world. And as we can see here, we're starting with forms, and that is where we started, and it seems like a great place to start with when trying to reopen. Here's a short list of some of the forms we've come up with so far. And I just want to note, when it comes to building these forms, it can be very difficult. We're trying to build forms that appeal to a broad range of use cases, a broad range of businesses. However, this list will continue to update, we'll continue to refine as we learn more and we hear more feedback. But some of the forms we started out with are simple as a temperature tracking form, our gatekeeper form, which those two I will dive into, as well as our CDC persons under investigation, contact tracing, and our unemployment DOL form. These are a few of the forms we started with, but as I mentioned, we're going to continue to add as we learn more. Just want to show you what some of these forms will look like, how they'll feel, and how we think they can add value. So the first form we're going to walk through is our temperature tracking form. It's a very short form, it's a very simple form, but it's a very powerful form in the fact that it can be filled out quickly. So as businesses start to reopen, whether that's a factory, a restaurant, to the point where many employees are going to be coming back or patrons are going to be coming back to visit, one of the big initiatives we're seeing in the world is temperature checking. So with this form, our idea behind it was basic information and are they running a fever, are they not? So I'll go ahead and show the form here. Oh, sorry about that. Our temperature tracking form. and it's asking first name, last name, and employee temperature. With this particular form, we've built in some logic. So for anyone that is new to the iFormBuilder platform, the forms have the ability to utilize the entire JavaScript library. So skip logic, calculations, validations, this is really what can make the forms dance, and it's something as simple as this, very powerful. So I'm going to walk through the form, just fill out my first name, last name, and we'll hit done. In this case, I'm obviously being interviewed by someone, and they're going to go ahead and check my temperature. Let's say, for sake of argument, I do have over a 98.6. We'll go ahead and put 101.1. The form's immediately going to alert the person that's performing the temperature check that this employee is running a fever and cannot be admitted to the facility. So again, something that's very basic, only 3 questions. We're now able to stop that person from entering the place of business, entering a facility, and turning them away. After we complete this record, we're going to go ahead and submit this. So a copy of this record will be stored. So if that person is pushed into a 14-day quarantine, or maybe it was just a weird day that they were running a temperature and they come back the next day and everything's fine, we have these records to compare. So again, the power behind this form is first alerting the interviewer that this person needs to be turned around or they're good to go. Also that it's very quick. So I know at some of the facilities, we're going to see hundreds, if not thousands of people returning to work. Another thing with this temperature tracking form is, as you can see, I had to type in the temperature. Another initiative we're working with along with this form is the ability to integrate with temperature tracking hardware. So actually scanning someone's forehead and having that update into the form itself. It is something we're currently working through now. As we make progress on this, updates will be shared in our COVID Command Center, which I'll show a little later, as well as other various outreaches that we do. But just want to let everyone know, we know it's important to have these integrations. It is something we're working towards. And once that's done, it's something that allows it to be even more efficient and easier to fill out and get people either checked into the building or not allowed in. Barrett, based off that form I started with, is there any questions so far?
So there's a question about the hardware integration. Is that something that Zerion and iFormBuilder would define what kind of thermometer that we would use? Or is that something that the customer can come to us and say, hey, we want to use this kind. Can you integrate it with my form?
Good question. So initially, we are going to look to define the hardware that will be used, just because that is the hardware that we are testing. However, as more of these hardwares are going to be produced and new devices come out, we're always open to a discussion to see if we can integrate with different various pieces of hardware. So if there's a group out there that had found a thermometer that is working or a scan tool that is working, please reach out to us. We're always, like I said, always open to discussion. And if the proper things are already set up on the hardware itself, it can be a much easier integration to take place. So in the interim, we are going to be pushing the devices we are testing. However, we're always open to testing more pieces of hardware.
Great, thank you, MJ. There's one more question before we go to the next form.
Yep.
If someone wanted to use an employee ID and it comes from an external data source, could they use like a lookup table or smart table search to do that?
Absolutely. In fact, that is something I'm going to dive into in the next form, but that is functionality that is available inside the iFormBuilder platform. Using a unique identifier to address pre-known information about someone is definitely doable.
Perfect. All right. So that's it so far. Thank you, MJ.
Yep, no problem, Barrett. Now, our next form is our iFormBuilder Gatekeeper initiative. So this was originally built to be a guard check-in. So essentially, you come to a facility, and in order to enter the facility, they need to know who's going in, what you're there for, how long you'll be there, and when you check out. In response to COVID-19, we thought this is a great tool to be used as folks are starting to go back to work. First off, knowing who's on site is very key if someone does happen to contract the coronavirus. Who are they in contact with? How long were they on site? So we can start that tracing to let other employees know that, hey, we did have someone that had it. Please go get tested, quarantine yourself for 14 days, just to make sure everything's okay. On the screen here is an example dashboard that can take place. So for someone that's actually not holding the device, to check in to see who's on site, who's off site, or if we do have someone that did contract it, looking back at a specific date again to see who they were with. With the form I'm going to show, it's very basic. It only asks, what are you here for? However, the goal behind these forms are to either A, be used as they are now, which is great, or as templates for users. So take the forms we've already built and then go ahead and add. The way I've already looked at it, which I kind of wish I did before the webinar here, is actually pairing the temperature tracking form and the gatekeeper form together. So all in one spot, we have their temperature and why they're on site. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into the gatekeeper form here. The way this is set up, it's one individual person is monitoring the in and outs of someone going in and out of the building. Here we can see there's already a queue of 3 workers that are already inside the building. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one. Basic question, checking in or out. If I'm checking in, we'll see the form grows to ask, are you a new visitor or are you not? If I were to click yes at this point, the way it's set up currently, it's going to ask you to scan a driver's license to pull data about that person or have them type it in manually. And then they'd go and fill out reason for visit, time in, sign off, and then be added to the queue. What's nice about that is once they've been added the first time, the next time they'd come back to the facility, are you a new visitor or a new employee? They would go ahead and click no and already be added to that queue. So I'm actually going to go into the no part, and it's going to ask for my full name. As we can see, here's the list of employees that have been here before. I'm right at the top there, Michael Joseph Niscoto III, and it pre-populates all that known information about me. So full name, company, address, city, state, and zip. These fields can be changed as you need to answer that question earlier, but yes, a unique identifier in this case was my full name. Maybe I show an ID badge to correlate that, but pre-populating known information about me without having to type it in over and over. Next, reason for visit. We'll go ahead and hit test, time in, and then I'm going to sign off on the record. And we'll go ahead and submit that. So once I hit submit, a copy of that is going to be pushed to the database for storage, but a copy is also going to be kept here on the device for the person that's working that in and out, entry and exit point. Sorry about that. Now let's assume an hour has gone by. I've done what I need to do on site. I'm going to come back up to the person that's doing the check. Hi, Michael Niscoto, I need to check out. They're going to go ahead and click my name from the queue here. Check out, scroll down to the bottom, time out. We'll go ahead and move that an hour. Signature's still there. We'll hit done. And as you'll notice, since I've checked out, I will now be removed from the queue and there will only be 3 users left. So again, very powerful to let you know who's on site, who's not on site as we start to reopen businesses in the world. Very good for tracking, very good for tracing if something were to happen on site. Barrett, any questions off of the gatekeeper form of the functionality we just walked through?
There were some, but I've already answered them, so I think we are good to go right now.
All right, sounds good. Now, the final form I'm going to walk through is actually a CDC form we found online. We figured this is, if the CDC is producing this form, it's going to be used by somebody. It was in its current paper state, trying to think through how this workflow might work. You're interviewing a patient, filled out on paper, that then is turned into someone else who has to probably double entry that data to get it into another system, so on and so forth. So what we were able to do was recreate this again in an electronic iFormBuilder form and have it easy to fill out and produce something in the background. So just to show you the form we actually started with, this was the CDC form itself. This was the paper version of it. 2-page form, yes, no boxes, pretty in-depth interview of what's taking place. If we go back to the CDC form here, I went ahead and filled it out ahead of time just due to the length of the form. But what the powerful part about this form is, easy to fill out just like any other iFormBuilder form. Text fields here, asking for some high-level details on the patient, contact ID, case IDs, and then next we have our actual surveys of the patient. So these are what are called subforms. Again, for anyone that's brand new to the iFormBuilder platform, all the subform is a form nested in another form. So interviewer information, basic information, and symptoms. Interviewer information is just, I as the person who's going to be interviewing the patient, very simple here. We can get into more further details about the patient, commonly seen on a lot of medical forms. When did you report this? Race, ethnicity, age, any pre-existing medical conditions. When, again, more dates of when's the first time you felt this, any symptoms you've done. And as you'll see, if you do download this form and go through it, certain fields, as you answer them, will grow to ask for additional information. As we're going through this basic information, I thought it should be noted as well that iFormBuilder does offer HIPAA compliant accounts. As everything I'm showing here is personally identifiable information, we do offer HIPAA compliance. So if that is something of interest, please reach out after the webinar. We'd be happy to talk through that and what needs to go into setting an account up like that. And then finally, the last subform are symptoms. And this is the real big part of the second page that I showed. And it's simple yes, no's about how you're currently feeling. And it goes on and on and on, but very simple to just bounce back and forth, hit yes, no, and continue, almost like a punch list of the person you're interviewing. Now, the powerful part about this workflow, when you collect an iFormBuilder record, it is pushed back to the iFormBuilder server. There's many ways to view it. One of them is through our pretty much canned PDF view, which might not be good enough for reporting or actually turning into a governing body. So what we did was actually recreate the paper form in a PDF version that is linked to the form I just showed. So all these fields that you see that are filled in here were done on the iFormBuilder device. I'm sorry, on the device itself inside the iFormBuilder form. So when I hit submit, this is generated in the background. This can be emailed to multiple people, used as a report to turn in maybe to the CDC, maybe another governing body, or maybe even to hand back to the patient. What I'm showing here is our documents tool. This is an additional add-on. I want to make that known, but it allows you to recreate current PDFs like the ones we have here, or start from scratch and build one. So what we're able to do here, if we take a few steps back, instead of just having that paper form that we had to turn into someone else who they had to do double entry and figure this out, this is immediately created in the background, can be sent to multiple people, and then upload it into any other place that it may need to go. So kind of the power behind that is cutting out the double entry, streamlining that process, and allowing that interviewer who may be interviewing one patient to immediately move on to the next patient. So Barrett, any questions on the CDC form or the documents portion?
So there was a question about HIPAA and how we handle that. And I think if you just want to reiterate that what people should do if they're interested in that, that would be great.
Yep. So when it comes down to setting up a HIPAA account, it comes down to risk assessment. So it does require a further conversation just to understand what you're doing, obviously explain how everything's set up inside the iFormBuilder infrastructure, and then kind of setting up the account from there. So if it is, again, something of interest, please reach out after the webinar. The team would be happy to answer any questions you may have specifically towards your workflow.
Great. And then there was another question that actually came up right after we did the gatekeeper questions. This individual asked, wouldn't it make more sense to actually take a picture of somebody who's going in and out instead of having multiple people coming in and signing the same iPad and having to deal with that aspect?
Yes, I completely agree with that. I know in the past, I think it is something we're still working towards, having the ability to have a photo repopulate with a form. Would love to learn more about what you're trying to do there and see if we can set something up. But I do believe that is something that is under development right now. Another thing I did.
It can be done.
Yeah. So I think what the question was is from a touching the device perspective, right? So in today's world, we don't want people to touch the devices. So I think the question was, well, if we can just take a picture and let them in, it's actually touchless. So it's actually, I think it's a good idea. I think we should just have two options, right? Like MJ was saying, this form was originally designed for checked in prior to the world turning upside down. So now we can add this taking picture. We can certainly do that.
And maybe you have to take a picture when they enter and when they leave. So.
Right.
And then another thing just to put on top of that is there were a couple groups we were working with. It's the ID badges. So actually scanning the ID badges as you would scan a driver's license, utilizing the device camera and populating that information. So you can obviously look at their ID badge, check their face, and then scan. That doesn't require any contact. All they have to do is hold their badge out, hold the device over top, and it can pull that information in.
Great.
Right. So I would like to jump in because I do see some people here never heard about. They're just checking things out. So we're not a vertical specific solution. So iFormBuilder by itself is a general data collection, mobile data collection platform. So you can build any form you want. We are seeing a lot of need in this regard, so we pre-built something so all of you do not have to do that again. So like if you want to add a picture taking capability, you want to scan your employees' badges, we can add those in very, very easily.
So off of that, and this works out perfectly, there have been some people who come in and are asking, are are we the ones, or are the customers the ones who build the forms and manage them, or is iFormBuilder going to be that part of the process?
MJ.
Yes and yes. Yes and yes. So, like I mentioned, just to start with the COVID forms that we've built, they can be treated as downloaded and ready to use. They can be treated as templates. Most folks, we do offer the form builder to go in and start making changes, creating your forms, are able to do that. However, we do have a team in-house that has, at this point, thousands of forms and thousands of projects under their belt. So if you do need help, or have a specific workflow that you would like to see brought to life, we again do have a team in-house that can help with that.
Great. That's all for questions right now. But if there are more questions, if people have more questions about the forms that MJ went through, just put them in the question area, and then I can bring them up as we go forward.
All right, and then.
So with that, I'm going to launch a quick poll. For those of you who said you weren't able to put a response in earlier for the poll, if you don't have your if you don't have the GoToWebinar as full screen, you should be able to respond. And while people are responding to this poll, there is another question that just came in about social distancing and how it may become a normal practice in the future. This individual thinks that iForm can be a really useful tool to get some businesses a use case done. Is there any option with using forms under unlimited licenses but more users?
Z, would you like me to answer that, or you?
You go ahead.
So, Barrett, just to confirm that was limited answers but unlimited users. Is that correct?
So I think they were focusing on having more users instead of the amount of licenses. And the licensing may be focused on forms. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay. So just to try to dive into that, so more focusing on having as many users as you need, and then a cap on how much data you can enter. Again, I'm still a little confused on the question there.
We might be
I
able to get
think
some clarification.
the answer is yes. Let's talk.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I was headed. We do have our normal user pricing on the website. However, please talk to us. We're more than happy to make adjustments depending on the use case, depending on what the need is. We do it constantly with our customers to fit to their business. So please reach out. We're happy to talk through that.
Great. So with that, I'm going to close the poll, but I do want to share the results so everyone can see them. So it looks like that temperature tracking is definitely of a lot of interest, but all of them seem to be pretty popular.
All right, perfect. I figured the temperature tracking would be one. It's super simple, easy to flow through. So like I said, as we get more development on that, we will let everyone know. The next thing I wanted to talk through is our COVID Command Center. So let me go ahead and pull up our link here. So on the iFormBuilder website, I don't know if anyone has visited this yet, but we do have our COVID Command Center. This will be constantly evolving, constantly updating as we get more information. However, here's some of the forms we have already presented. This list will keep growing as we add more forms, but we want to treat this as kind of our central hub for updating and information. Also, we are offering free COVID accounts if it's specifically for that need. Down here at the bottom, if you just go ahead and fill out this form and reach out, someone from the iFormBuilder or Zerion team will contact you to talk through your use case and help get you set up with a free account, which will run through September 2020. And that can change, obviously as the world changes. But again, this is where all information is going to be stored about COVID. Anything we find out, any feedback we get, any new forms that we add, this is where that information will be stored and updated. So if you do have any questions, please visit this webpage here. Next, I'm going to pass it back over to Z, who's going to talk through some of our upcoming initiatives that we are currently working on.
Right. Thanks, MJ. So I just want to go through two things that you will see coming to the COVID command center. One of those is the operations control. We were working on with groups now, collecting data, collecting temperature data, contact tracing, or whatever they need to reopen. One thing that we're thinking about is, can we make this process actually easier? Can we collectively design an audit process, how to reduce risk, right? So that's the overarching goal, is to help you reduce risk so that you know how many people to let into your office or customers, right? So as we go through, we'll learn more, and MJ will talk about another initiative that you all can participate. So in this operation controls, we also want to be the one view that as you collect all the information about your staff or maybe your customer, right? So how many people come in, who may have fever, or what's the temperature, where are they coming from? They've been quarantined for however long. We want to get into that single viewpoint, and that is coming. And watch out for it. Go into the command center to see that. Yep. So the next big thing that I'm personally working in, which is a little bit more futuristic, but it's very important right now. What you see on the right side here on the screen is my yellow card. Now, I don't know if some of you may have, but if you travel a lot, chances are you need to carry this with you. When we went to Africa, Bangladesh, some of the countries, you need to show them this yellow card that prove that you've been vaccinated on certain things that they care about. So in the past, this is kind of your I don't want to use the term passport because it's being overused right now, but as a guarantee that they trust that you're good enough for them to again assess the risk. Going into the future, we believe that we need a future digitized version of that yellow card, and the COVID Credential initiative is working toward that. It is a global initiative with right now I would say over 100 of organizations working together to define something that is globally available and privacy preserved. So just know that it's not easy. It's not easy feat to do across all the countries, but I'm super excited that we have to have that. So that's why I'm putting a lot of energy there myself to hopefully one day we can announce a future version of this yellow card. All right. So I think with that, passing back to MJ.
All right, thank you, Z. The next thing I wanted to go over was our Zerion advisory board. As I had mentioned with the forms earlier, we're making a lot of assumptions here at Zerion because we just don't have the data to know what people need. So the temperature tracking form, the gatekeeper form, even the CDC form, we wanted to get forms out so folks had something to start with. However, if there is a specific form or something we're not taking into account or a workflow that you would like to see brought to life, please join our advisory board. Here's the link I just clicked on. Very simple, basic information we're asking for, which will then intend lead to a call. But this is how we learn and how we refine what we're putting out. We're only as good as the data we have, and with this COVID-19, just like everyone else, we're learning day in and day out. We're an inch deep, a mile wide in a lot of businesses, but there are businesses that when you're reopening, there's challenges we don't know that you're going to face, and there may be a form that can help with that. So I encourage anyone on this call, please join the advisory board. We want to hear from you. We want to learn more, and it's a great data share to help everyone get reopened. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Barrett to roll into our last poll.
And so this is a quick question about the advisory board. If you're interested in, well, actually, if you're okay, if our team, or if you're interested in our team reaching out to discuss the solutions a little bit more. And if so, we'll take this information and definitely reach out to you in the next 24 or 48 hours to talk through the solutions. While people are responding to this question, MJ, another question did come in on just how do they get started? How can they start using some of these forms that have been developed and get moving into creating a solution for their business?
Absolutely. So for any current iFormBuilder users, the forms I showed are available in form packages. So you can actually go ahead, grab those form packages and upload them into your account. From there, again, use as they currently are or make adjustments. For anyone that is brand new to the platform, there are multiple ways to get started. But as I mentioned, if you're looking at this strictly from a COVID view, please fill out that form on the COVID Command Center. That pushes right to me. I can then go ahead and get you set up with an account. I can upload those forms in there for you and you can get going. Or if someone's currently on a trial and again wants to have access to one of these forms, same thing as anyone that's a current customer, the packages are available. We can help upload those into your trial, or you can go ahead and grab those and put those into your trial. So multiple ways to get started with those forms.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And with that, we are getting to the end of our session here. So we're ready to help you and assist you in any way that we can. And so if you're ready for that too, let us know, and we're happy to work with you. A big thank you for all of you who attended today, and some of the feedback that you've given us. It's been extremely helpful. And we really do want you to be a part of this process and making our world better and safer. So please either join the advisory board or email us and let us know what your thoughts are and how we can improve. Also, a big thank you to Z and MJ for presenting the material today. I really appreciate it, and I think everyone else on this call did as well. So thank you, and we'll stick around for another minute or so if there's any other questions. But otherwise, feel free to leave and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.